Hello, friends. I'm Christy Tovani with I Love Fair Oaks, and I'm here today at Miller's Ace Hardware with our local paint expert, Dave Dix. And
Hi, everybody.
so, Dave, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, my name's Dave, and I've been in the paint and coatings industry for well over 4 decades. I served with another large local company for most of that time, and I'm here because my company is no longer around,
Hmm.
and I really had a great opportunity to come here and be more in a community-oriented opportunity with Jessica here at Miller's Ace Hardware. So I'm very grateful to be
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Jessica's done a lot of great things for the community. Um, so, one of the first questions I wanted to ask you is what's the most important factors that homeowners should keep in mind when they're choosing a paint for their home?
Great question. And I would say, first and foremost, choose the best products and tools that you can for your budget, because there's a lot of different grades of material, a lot of different grades of tools, and they can all get you a really good job if they're used correctly.
Hmm.
And at Miller's Ace Hardware here, we supply the Benjamin Moore line of paint, and not only the Benjamin Moore flagship line, but all of our products, our Royal and our Clark Kinson, is all made by Benjamin Moore, which means it's no matter what you buy, it's all top quality resin packages, top quality pigments that go into them, top quality colorants, and the product line is, as somebody who's been in the business and the coatings business for many years, it's just a very excellent high grade of product, no matter what product line or price point you're at.
Hmm.
So that's really the best thing I can tell people, is to get the best possible products and tools for your budget.
Okay. Michael, I have a question. I have a question because of the music. If if it's more than 10 seconds, if it's on the video, we'll get called for copyright. So I just realized that. Huh? You'll be able to cut it out? Okay. That's just
Yeah.
funny.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because then they'll cut out our voices too. And we'll just be moving with no sound. Okay. Um, so yeah, I just want to make sure I don't ask a question on top of what you just said. Okay, so what should homeowners consider when they're taking into consider? Let me re-ask that because I'm going all over the place here.
It's okay.
Oh, this is what I want to ask. With a wide variety of architectural styles and Pinterest boards out there, and people get all these ideas,
Mm-hmm.
um, so how do you find that that impacts the ways that people come in to select the colors and the styles that they're going to put in their home, and will their homes match those styles, and how do you help them with that if you think it's not going to work or
Well, yeah, again, that's a really great question, because it's, as much as we try to fit the products and tools for a customer's budget, uh, color is what sells.
Mm,
Colors, color trends, and Benjamin Moore again is at the top tier because they've been around for well over 100 years. So they've been at the forefront of color trends, color changes, product technology, all those things that go into what you do. But the answer to your question, as far as matching a product to your house, oftentimes I'll have a client that come in and says, I had this picture. I love this picture on this person's house, and they have this big, elaborate, maybe elaborate large
mm,
house, or it could be anywhere. But then their house is completely different architectural style. So you might have something that is a Tudor or a colonial, and they have a basic ranch style house. Well, that doesn't always translate
right.
one to another. So you have to have gentle conversations, and maybe ask the questions: How long do you plan to be in this home? Because if you plan to be there long term and you're doing it for yourself, then you should do what you want. You should do what fills your
Yeah.
heart and what's best for you. If you don't plan on being in that place for a long particular time, you really need to think about the future,
Right.
and what
Selling
someone
it.
else is going to be like, because you want it to have good curb
Right.
appeal, and you don't want it to be something that is so personal that it doesn't translate to another buyer or someone else potentially coming down the road.
Right. Yeah. And another thing too is that every year we have these trending colors, like what's the color for 2024?
Right.
And one of the things I find is, and it's a good sales approach, is that once you go and you align your design style with all the colors and you get everything dialed in and you've painted, and then all of a sudden they're saying that that color is no longer trendy and you
Right,
shouldn't paint your kitchen that color.
right.
So what color do you think is the best color for kitchens to be painted
Well, and then
for
again, another great
longevity?
question. First of all, though, the good news is that it's only paint.
Yeah.
You can always change the color. That's the great part about paint. When you have walls, and yes, it's work, but it's not like tearing your house apart and doing a remodel. If you don't like your countertops, you don't like your cabinets,
Hmm.
and depending on what it is you do, when you're talking about paint, it's a by contrast, it's a very simple change. If you're doing it just to keep up with trends. But to answer your question, is what's popular right now. It is pretty much whites and white cabinets, shaker style cabinet doors, for example. Just thinking about kitchens, and then having colors on lowers or islands, dark colors
Hmm.
like dark navy grays or greens, sage greens, darker greens like that, and anything that's dark, and even black and white's very popular. So you'll see that a lot in a lot of your Pinterest, a lot of your ads and design ads and things going forth. That seems to be a really popular trend right
I
now.
like black, but you were telling me the other day that black doesn't do really well with it shows
With
everything.
durability,
Yeah.
yeah. So that there's a couple problems with dark colors like that. So again, that comes into the the opportunity to you choose the right product for what it is you're
Hmm.
going to do, because it's true that when you have products that are very dark in color with architectural grade paints, typical architectural grade paints, you lose durability. You have to take something out in order
Oh,
to put
that's
something
right.
in, and so what they have to put in is colorant, liquid colorant, which has other chemicals that make it softer. And it doesn't have the durability. So when you would do a scrub test, for example, or a durability test over a white paint or a black paint, the black paint's going to not only burnish easier, which means it's going to have marks and scuff marks, it's going to be a softer film and it's going to burn through much quicker. So it's going to be a lot less
It's
durable.
going to show all the fingerprints.
Exactly. So it's going to be about really typically it's about half as durable as an original white.
So if you have kids and you paint your lower cabinet a dark color and your kids are touching
Yeah.
everything, and you're going to have marks all over the
Yeah,
place.
especially when you get into those really dark colors. Now you can have deep tones, and we have a great selection of colors in here that
Hmm.
that you can choose from that will give you the contrast and the color that you want. And it's not always definitely the absolute darkest tones, but so there's a lot of great selection. That's one benefit that Benjamin Moore has. Our color selection is like no one else's. And so that lends itself to the designer group. And then there's some colors that you can get as a stock. So we can tailor the material for the surface that you're painting.
Okay.
So if you're painting cabinets, for example, where you have kids, lower cabinets are going to be going around, there are good coatings that are highly durable that will handle the amount of colorant that needs to go in and still give you a durable finish. Or I can recommend a top coat to go over the
Right.
top. So you get the color you want, and then you have the durability of that top coat over the
So when
top.
somebody comes into the store, when you're looking for paint, it's not something that you should say, "Oh, I'm just looking," and you try to figure it all out yourself. It
Right.
really would benefit you to talk to somebody
Absolutely.
about
Ask the
what you need
questions.
so that you can, and that's what
Yeah.
you're here for.
Absolutely. I like to know what their project is. I like to be able to help them through that project. And a lot of people with YouTube and
Yeah.
Pinterest and a lot of these things are on there. I think they have a really good idea of what it is they want there. And they think that that's the necessary the person to give them what they need, but every area is different.
Right.
Every area of the country is different. So not all things apply to the area that we're at. But there's definitely a lot of good that has come out of that. So it gets their creative juices
Right.
flowing. And so I like to work with that and then help them to achieve that goal of getting the colors and the finishes that they want and an appropriate finish that's going to do the job for them. So they don't come back and say, "Hey, that paint you sold me, man, it
Oh,
was,
yeah, it
it
didn't
didn't work. My
work.
kids trashed it or this or that, or whatever the case may be." I want to make sure they get exactly what they need and that everybody's happy and overall.
And some of that could even be a matter of not handling the paint properly, like you were talking the
Exactly.
other day. So explain why it's so important, the way that you prep your brushes and the way that you store your paints when you're still in the process of working.
Great. Yeah, it is very important to do that. And one of the things that most people don't that I tell customers every time I come in, every time I see a roller go into a basket, whether it's a big basket or a little basket or a brush that goes in there. I see them select a brush, and I'll ask them. I said, do you know the best way to use that tool, or what do you, again, what are you painting, what are you doing? And I'll help them make that decision, make sure not only they have the right tool, but then that they use the tool properly. And typically, depending on the product that you're using, whether it's a water base or a solvent base, you want to what we call pre-wet that roller or brush with either water or the solvent that's used to cut or clean up that material. And what that does is that actually primes the fibers of the applicating tool to swell. And so it makes your paint release easier. So it doesn't end up on you. It ends up on the surface that you're actually painting, right? So the last thing you want is you're working on a fairly high place
And
and
it's
you're
just
rolling
dripping
it and
down.
it's just showering across you, right? I mean,
I have been there.
yes, I know many people have. And so by pre-wetting a roller, for example, by applying it to the roller, wetting it down, and then spinning the XF off, it fluffs the fibers and gets it prepared for paint. So it makes it hold more paint. It makes it release paint easier, so it doesn't just slip around all over the place. And you get better coverage, you get better hide, you get a better layout of the product, and then just making sure they know the fundamentals of applying paint to
Right.
a wall or to a surface. And then again, the tool makes a difference. And the same with a brush. You want to pre-wet your brush and only load it so far up the bristles. So if you have a brush that has a 3-inch bristle on it, you only want to load it up to about 1.5 inches, as opposed to loading it
Yeah,
all the way to the
good.
ferrule, which a lot of people do, and slop it on there. You don't really want to do that. But by pre-wetting the brush, it helps to eliminate the travel, the wicking motion of the paint all the way up in the brush, which destroys your brush. You pay good money for a good tool, and there are ways to clean it, make sure it's good and clean, and then putting that back in the package it came in. That keeps the bristles very straight. It keeps them straight, allows them to dry even and uniform. So when you pull that brush out of the package next time, if you got it good and clean, works just like it was brand new.
And then you also don't want to cross contaminate anything so that the paint doesn't
Yes, you don't
go
want
bad.
to leave your paint or your tools in your bucket, because that cross contamination, or especially if you add any water or anything to it, that can be a problem. The best thing to do with your paint, because paint will age and it's exposed to air and oxygen, the best thing to do with your leftover paint is to get some saran wrap in the container it's in, if you don't have a smaller one to put it in. So the paint should be in the closest size container to how much paint you have left. So if you have a gallon of paint, you have a half gallon left, well, you don't really have a half gallon container, you only have a quart. So the best thing to do is take a piece of saran wrap, and then once you're finished, is to put that saran wrap down inside to the paint and put it over the surface of the film. That prevents it from skinning over, prevents oxygen from getting to it, and keeps the paint nice and liquid and ready for the next time you're going to do it. And then you seal it up. Always use like some form of brush around your lid to keep all that paint build up from inside your lid, so you get a good tight seal. And
Okay.
those things are really important.
Let's see what else we have here.
When you pre-wet a brush, like is the paint that you're going to use that brush with, it's prepared to be mixed with some of the water that's going to be on the pre-wet brush?
Yeah. So if it's water-based paint that you're using, so when you pre-wet the brush, so what you do at that point then is that, just like the roller, you put it on the roller handle, you spin it off, or you put it on what we call a roller spinner and use those to clean as well. So it's the same process. And if you'll hand me a brush that's right down underneath in one of these bags here, right underneath the table, just hand me one of these real quick, and I'll show you what we do. So you take a brush like
Okay.
this. This happens to be a really, really great brush. It's oval. It's nice and stiff, creates a really nice line. So when you dip this in some water, then you want to take it in a clean bucket and you want to spin it like this.
Oh, okay.
That gets rid of all the excess water that you need.
Could you do that again without the
Yeah, without that there. So we go like that in your sink or in your container in your bucket, and that gets rid of the excess
Not in your
water.
kitchen.
Yeah. Well, I do it in my kitchen sink when I'm doing cleanup, so
Well,
that's fine.
in your sink, but
Yeah, and you have water running on it, so but that primes it, gets it ready to go,
yeah.
and makes the release of paint easier, so you get a nice good clean line, and however you're doing. And again, you only want to load your paint up. So in a
Right.
case like this, you want to load your paint up maybe to the side. And most people load a brush and they scrape it off on one side, scrape it off on the other side. You don't want to do that. So whatever side you're going to be using, if you're going to go this way, you want your paint to be loaded on this side. If you're going to go this way, you want your paint to be loaded on this side. So you only scrape off one side, or I'll dip in there and then I'll just tap it on the inside of the bucket or the can, and then start painting and cutting my lines. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So you guys need to come and see Dave if you have any questions about painting your house. Don't try to do it alone.
Yeah.
We should have a slogan about this, like don't paint alone. But one of the other things that I learned about is that Miller's Ace Hardware has a recycling plan for paint.
Absolutely, we do.
So how does that work?
So since the company that I used to work for closed, we were a major recycler. So everybody that buys paint within the state of California, and I think pretty much within the country, there's a fee that is charged. They're not, and there's a group that was set up. It's a 501c3. It is not a state-run organization, but it's called Paint Care. So there's a fee that's involved for every gallon of paint that is categorized that they can recycle. And you pay a fee for it, which 75 cents a gallon or $1.50 a 5 that you pay for every 5 of paint, which gives you the right to recycle. Not everybody recycles. So we have a bin in the back, which allows customers to bring in their excess old paint. As long as it has a reasonable label on it, it's not a 2-part material or a solvent or a spray can. Yeah, we're happy to take your empty 5s, empty quarts, empty gallons, empty half-gallon containers. As long as it has a somewhat of a label on it and is a typical architectural grade paint, yeah, we're happy to take it. That gets it out of the landfills, and they use a lot of the cans for recycled materials. They use them in tires, they use them in carpets and all different kinds of things.
So how long does paint usually last after you've used it to paint a kitchen or paint your house? Because I notice, like, I'm a realtor, and when people sell homes, oftentimes in the garage there'll be some cans of paint in there for people to touch up. So how long do those usually last?
Typically, a can of water-based paint will last about 2 years is a typical shelf life. But as long as it's stored correctly, and again, some of the methods that I talked about, if you had only a half gallon of paint in a gallon and it was stored with that saran wrap on there, chances are it's going to last quite a while. But I mean, I've used paint that's 4, 5, 10 years old.
Okay.
And solvent-based paints typically last longer than a lot of the water-based paints do, but there's not that much solvent paint out there these days.
And
anyway.
then if the paint isn't any good, but they bring in the can and they still have the color in their house and they like that color, but they need to touch it up, so can they get that remixed for them? And not the paint itself, but can they buy new paint matched to that color?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we offer here is what we call custom color matching or custom eye matching.
Okay.
We have our computer set up over here that is has what's called a scanner. I also have a portable scanner that I can take out to a customer site if they don't have. So sometimes they don't have any spare paint left. Say, well, it's on my wall here, it's on my side of my house, and they don't want to bring in a chunk of their wall. So I can go out there with this little portable scanner and do that same thing of what we do in here. Take a measurement. I can send that to them in a format, text it to them so they have a record of it, and then we can take it back in here and duplicate it here and then create a record for them on file, so they always know what to get.
All right. Well, we've learned a lot today, and I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
And I look forward
That's what we're here
to
for.
doing some more videos with you and coming in and getting some tips to give to our Fair Oaks audience.
That'd be awesome.
So
Come on
thank
in.
you,
We'll take
Dave.
care of you.
Come on in to I love Fair Oaks. Come into Miller's Ace Hardware here in the heart of Citrus Heights and Fair Oaks. We're right at the intersection of Citrus Heights and Fair Oaks, I think it is. We used
That's
to be
right.
Fair Oaks, but the Citrus Heights kind of came over into the territory a little bit. But we're
Right behind
located.
the old Ferrari building.
They're located, right behind the old Ferrari building in the same parking lot as Dell's Pizza, and it is your local Miller's Ace Hardware. So Miller's Ace is the place, and come on in and see Dave for all your paint needs.
Thank you so much.
Well, did we do better this time?
Yeah.